Welcome to Faith in Extraordinary Times. Our guest today is Pastor Behnam Irani. Pastor Behnam was imprisoned for 6 years, charged with action against the state in Iran. He was, in reality, imprisoned because of his Christian faith. Although a political prisoner, Pastor Behnam was held with criminals in the notorious Ghezal Hesar prison. He was finally released, having completed his sentence in October 2016. It's so wonderful to have you with us today, Pastor Behnam. Welcome.
Thank you so much, Dave. I'm so happy for this time and great to all viewers.
Wonderful. So you were charged, as I mentioned, with crimes against the state. What were you actually doing that drew the attention of the Iranian authorities?
One of the biggest fears of the Islamic regime of Iran is the rise of interest in Christianity among Iranian people. I received so much persecution and anger from the Islamic regime of Iran because I was one of the responsibles for the Church of Iran and one of the first to start organizing home churches in Iran. Finally, I got arrested at the beginning of 2012 and was sentenced to spend 6 years in prison.
When you were in that prison, can you just tell us a little bit about what were the conditions like there?
The prison of the Islamic regime of Iran are in the lowest division and global standards. And the prison that I spent 6 years in it is one of the worst prisoners in the country. The prison executive sent me to the prison's sections number 7, which included 700% of murderers, and rest were armed thieves and well-known smugglers. The capacity of this hall was for 250 people. However, almost 700 prisoners were in that hall. There were 18 prison cells, and area of each was just 20 square meters. However, almost 35 prisoners were living in each cell. There was just only 7 toilets and 7 showers. This means that only 1 toilet and 1 shower for every 100 prisoners. Many of these prisoners were carrying sword and a knife that was made by themselves. And for this reason, I witnessed constant fatal and deadly fights during these years. If we were going to sleep at night, we were not sure that we will still alive in the morning.
So when you were in the prison, did you ever feel like God had deserted you?
Yes, Dave, of course. It happened me twice, and I can share one of them with you. My conviction, I remember my conviction was past about 4 years and should have been released in another 2 years. One day, the security guard of the prison came and took me to another prison that called Gohardasht prison, with my eyes closed and no explanation. They took me there and interrogated me for 18 days. And my family and my wife did not have any information about me during the 18 days. So they made a new charge against me, and the judge sentenced me to another 6 years for this new accusation. When they sent me to the previous prison, I faced a serious challenge, and somehow I got into trouble with God. I told him, Lord, I never complained to you for the first 6 years of my prison and spent all these years with happiness until today. But why did you let them sentence me to 1 years of imprisonment with such ease? Did you not say you wouldn't leave us as often? Did you not say you would fight for your children? But I did not feel your fatherly presence. And I gradually calmed down, eventually reaching the state of surrender to God and telling him that if your will would be for me to be locked up here for another 6 years, I will take it on. I told my wife not to wait for me anymore. I shall possibly stay in prison for many years and perhaps until I die. But suddenly, David, something strange happened, which was simultaneous to my surrendering to God one morning with no previous note. One morning, they took me from prison to appeal court because I had protested to the sentence. The conditions of court, the judge talked very politely, was surprised, I was shocked. And letting me speak, I have faith with all my heart that this behavior of the judge was the result of prayers of thousands of faithful people in many countries who prayed for me. After the court was finished, I returned to the prison in total disbelief. After 24 working hours, the Court of Appeals issued my acquittal of the second 6 years. When I was given this news in prison, a sound echoed inside me, in my heart. That was the voice of God. I was sure it was the voice of God in my heart, telling me very clearly, telling me that once you surrendered, you let me fight for you. As Job once said in the Bible, I probably had heard about the importance of surrendering to God's will, but there I could see it with my eyes.
That is an amazing story, Behnam, and wow,
Yeah.
just God really met with you, and it was once you accepted what and trusted God and accepted that you could be there for a long time and still said, I trust you, God, then God delivered you. That is wonderful. That's really amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah.
So I know that when you were in prison, you wrote a letter which said, don't let the seas of unkindness intimidate you. You can be the ocean of love if Jesus dwells in you. Can you just tell us a little bit about what led you to write that letter?
There were many prisoners there who had force raped a woman and were put in prison for this reason. The crime which I always believed should receive severe punishment. You know, outside prison, I had never had to live with such people, for example, for 24 hours a day. But when it became in prison, when it became possible in prison, I felt how much these people need God's love. And I strongly felt that I needed to enter the ocean of God's love by getting filled with the Holy Spirit, to become capable of defeating the sea of evil.
I know that many supporters, both CSW supporters and others around the world, campaigned so hard for your release and prayed. And I know even of one group of CSW supporters who actually wrote to Prince Charles and received a response from him. What would you like to say to those who prayed and campaigned for you?
One of the thoughts can seriously bother a prisoner in the feeling of being forgotten and loneliness. Therefore, when I was hearing, for example, that churches, organizations, and spontaneous groups have arranged campaigns for my freedom, or, for example, praying for me and sending cards to me or my family on different occasions, it encouraged and strengthened me a lot. And I was feeling more and clear that I belong to a divine family. Therefore, me and my family would thank your organization and very organizations that did not forget us during all those years of suffering and persecution, and interested for us in their prayers. We are so thankful for every helping from the CSW. All people in all the world, I think especially Christian people knows you and your activities is good, and 100% it's so full of hopefully for us, for encouragement, and thank you for everything.
What have you learned, Pastor Behnam, about going through challenging times that might help others now?
Perhaps what I can share with you as a personal experience that I learned through all these years is to face the fear points of my life, because of learned most of the time that when I faced them, they were not scary anymore, and they were even more inferior than I thought they would be.
So you found that, when you faced those fears with God alongside you, actually it was nothing as bad as you'd anticipated. Well, I know that you and your family are no longer living in Iran, you're now in Turkey. And what can we be praying for you at the moment?
As you know, Dave, now we are living in Turkey as refugees and waiting to leave for a third country. My family for nearly 5 years and I for nearly 3.5 years have been living in Turkey. The living conditions here are very difficult. We have no right to work. We are excluded from insurance support. Permission for traveling to other cities is not easily obtained, and in this country, our children are clearly and openly bullied and humiliated in places such as a school. The reality is that here is just a large prison. I think the prayer you could say for us and all Christians living in Turkey is to pray for our liberation from this country.
Well, we certainly will keep praying for that, Pastor Behnam. And I found it so inspiring listening to you and today, and I really feel so, I'm sure like everyone listening, we just feel really privileged that you've taken the time to share with us, and we will be praying for you. Thank you so much. God bless you.
And God so bless you. Have a nice day.
You too. Goodbye, Behnam.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye.